COVID has forced all of us at relatively short notice to switch to online course delivery. In the particular circumstance of this class, we had been evolving the method of course delivery over a number of years previously, which conveniently facilitated the transition to online learning. Very briefly, this is a graduate class, usually about 20 students. And although there are guest lecturers, some of whom deliver their material in a traditional didactic lecture format, most of the course has been changed to this flipped class model, where the students are provided with the equivalent of the lecture content in advance, and synchronous time, as we would now call in-class time, is used to engage in hopefully a higher level of discussion about the material. Broad range of communicable disease topics with an emphasis on public health and prevention priorities, and a particular emphasis on concepts and principles rather than memorized knowledge. I must say that I had always felt uncomfortable with a straight lecture format at a graduate level, and I perhaps belatedly encountered the model of course delivery that we're describing here. And it had some fringe benefits, replaced a costly textbook, and I would say allows students greater control in terms of their reviewing the material. They could do it at their own pace in bite-sized chunks. They can go back and review sections that are less clear. This was initially delivered using a technology called Camtasia that I was introduced to by the Center for Teaching and Learning, but more recently we are using PowerPoint with embedded audio. So no matter how fascinating I may believe this material is, and the incredible scope for interplay of biology, epidemiology, human behavior, as for example in the case of sexually transmitted infections, economics, politics, ethics, and practical details of surveillance and implementation, still, even at a graduate level, providing the maximum opportunity for higher level discussion around this material is a primary goal of course delivery. This is Edwina's section.
As Dan has mentioned, a key component to the class was ensuring student engagement. So I'm going to spend some time briefly talking about how we use discussion guides as an engagement tool in class. So we incorporated discussion guides in the course as a way to help facilitate in-class discussion. How we did this was by formulating a set of questions for students to select up to 3 from and respond to. They would submit their answers prior to class, and we would use those responses to guide in-class discussion, encourage students to share those responses in class, or discuss common and diverse themes in their responses. So this is a sample of how these discussion guides were structured. We typically had 3 blocks, each pertaining to a topic related to the lecture that week. And students would pick one question from each block that they wish to answer. They would submit this to me. I would go over the answers and seek out common themes, different responses, and look for prompts to facilitate discussion during the in-class component that week. So just some final thoughts. The purpose behind the discussion guides was to encourage students to share their thoughts and reflections after viewing the pre-recorded lectures. What we found was students often submitted really thoughtful, well thought out, diverse responses to these questions. It also allowed for students who are less likely to speak out in class to share their responses and hear from them. Some drawbacks that we noticed was that it does take time to organize and review those responses, to be able to seek out some common themes and look for prompts in order to be used during the in-class component. Another drawback was that we noticed that some prompts and some questions work better than others. And even though students might have already answered those questions in the discussion guides, they still might not feel incentivized to share those responses in class. So some ways that these discussion guides can be improved upon would be to possibly provide grades for active participation as well. And I've linked an article at the bottom of the slide here by Abdullah et al. Titled Student Participation in the Classroom and What Motivates Them to Speak Up. And one of the suggested tips was to provide marks or grades for every active participation. So that could be one way to improve upon these discussion guides in the future. Another way would be to encourage students to come on video for the discussion portion, as a lot of the face-to-face component is lost in a virtual setting. And lastly would be to possibly get creative with some of the questions asked and maybe set up polls, asking students if they agree or disagree, and trying different things out as well.
We have incorporated other strategies or teaching tools. So as one example, in the topic of vaccination, we ask the students bring to class the full spectrum of views and opinions that they get from friends or relatives of anti-vax views to challenge the speaker. Well, getting back to the issue of online learning and COVID, it was convenient for us that the material had already been developed in a format that was readily adaptable to online teaching. We made a decision to retain a major synchronous component of this class because we felt that the discussion of the material was critical to the benefit and the value of the class. In the end, I can't help feeling that thousands of years of experience with universities has all involved in-person interaction between professors and learners, and there must be something to this that perhaps we shouldn't abandon too quickly. However, the online format allowed people to participate who otherwise would not have been able to, including people on the far side of the world. And I was somewhat surprised at the end of the class to hear a strong sense of positive views, even from students based in Edmonton, about the convenience of participating in class from home. And I'm sure this would be even more the case for early morning classes and perhaps in midwinter. I can't help believe that there's something lost by the lack of face-to-face learning, but with experience, I think we can work towards mitigating any possible disadvantages. And in fact, I felt subjectively that we saw a comparable degree of student interaction in the synchronous components of class in the online format as previously in the classroom. So what's in the future? We have to be prepared for online delivery this fall, however much we may hope to be gathering together in person by that time. But certainly this experience has shown us that there are other ways we could be doing things, possibly combinations of having some online students and some in-class students in the same class, or having a course in which part of the delivery is online and part in class.